Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room and everyone just listens? They don't shout, they don't try to dominate the space, but something about the way they speak, calm, grounded, intentional, makes you want to hear more. It's not about charisma, it's about clarity. And that, my friend, is what the Stoics mastered centuries ago. In a world drowning in noise, most people talk to be heard, but the Stoics, they spoke to bring peace. Their words weren't weapons, they were instruments of understanding, connection, and truth. I remember coaching a young entrepreneur once, brilliant guy, full of ideas, but frustrated because no one seemed to listen to him. He told me, "I don't get it. I'm saying smart things, but people just tune out." And I said, "That's because influence doesn't come from what you say. It comes from what people feel when you say it." He paused, and that moment changed everything. Because the truth is, words don't just carry meaning, they carry energy. And when your words are calm, clear, and rooted in self-control, people feel it, they trust it. That's what makes Stoic communication so powerful. It's not about persuasion, it's about presence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," and I believe the same is true with speech. Your words reflect the state of your inner world. When you're anxious, your words scatter. When you're angry, they cut. But when you're centered, when you've practiced silence, patience, and reason, your words land with weight. Not because they're loud, but because they're true. That's why this video isn't about learning to talk more. It's about learning to talk less, but mean more. To use language not as noise, but as clarity. The Stoics knew that influence, real influence, isn't about impressing people. It's about awakening something inside them. And sometimes, all it takes is a few words, spoken from the right place. In this video, we're going to explore 6 simple Stoic words, 6 phrases that carry centuries of wisdom in them. They may sound ordinary, but when used with awareness, they change everything. The way you connect, the way you lead, and even the way you see yourself. Because every conversation is a mirror of your mind. When your mind is chaotic, your words confuse people. When your mind is clear, your words become medicine. So if you've ever felt unheard, unseen, or misunderstood, stay with me. What you're about to discover isn't just about sounding wise, it's about becoming wise. It's about finding the kind of voice that doesn't need to fight for attention, because it already commands respect through stillness. Take a breath, slow down. Let's rediscover together the lost art of Stoic communication, and how 6 timeless words can transform not just the way you speak. Let's begin. Because these 6 words, when practiced, don't just make you sound wise. They shape who you are while you're speaking. They come from a place of stillness, the same kind the Stoics cultivated every day, the calm that makes your presence feel safe, not loud, but powerful. 1. Listen, veo3. Power of silent strength. You know what's rare today? Someone who actually listens. Most people don't listen to understand, so they listen to reply. They're waiting for their turn to speak, to prove, to fix, to interrupt. But Stoicism teaches something radically different. The strongest voice in the room is often the quietest. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." True listening is an act of humility. It's saying, "I'm not here to win, I'm here to understand." When I was working with a veteran struggling with anger, I noticed something. He didn't need advice, he needed space. Space to let his storm pass through words. So I sat there, I didn't correct him, I didn't quote philosophy, I just listened. After a while his voice softened, his shoulders dropped, and he said quietly, "You're the first person who didn't try to fix me." That's when I realized, listening heals, because when someone feels heard they stop shouting, and when they stop shouting they start hearing themselves. That's what Marcus Aurelius practiced every morning, silence before speech. because only a quiet mind can offer wise words. So if you want to influence people, start by listening to them deeply, without judgment. Let your silence be the space where others find their truth. 2. Understand. The gift of seeing without judging. Everyone wants to be understood, but few people offer understanding first. We live in a time where disagreement feels like disrespect, but to the Stoics, understanding doesn't mean agreement, it means awareness. Epictetus taught that before we respond to anyone, we must pause and ask, do I understand what they mean, or only what I think they mean? That pause, that tiny moment, is where wisdom lives. When you say I understand, you give the other person something they rarely receive, validation without ego. You're saying, I see you, not as an argument to defeat, but as a human to connect with. I once counseled a couple on the verge of divorce. Every sentence they said began with, you never or you always. But one day the husband stopped, took a breath and said, I understand why you feel hurt. That was it. No lecture, no apology yet, just acknowledgement. And you could see it. Her walls came down. For the first time she cried, not from pain but from relief. Understanding is the bridge that reconnects people after years of distance. It doesn't take logic, with Stoicism. It takes empathy rooted in reason. That's the Stoic way, to see beyond behavior and understand the cause beneath it. Because people don't act badly for no reason, they act out of fear, pain or confusion. And once you understand that, compassion becomes automatic. 3. Respect, the language of dignity. Respect is one of the rarest currencies in today's world, and yet it costs nothing. The Stoics believe that respect isn't earned by status, but deserved by existence. Seneca said, treat your inferiors as you would wish your superiors to treat you. It's easy to respect someone who agrees with you. The real test is respecting those who challenge you. When you respect others, even when they're wrong, you're not validating their mistake, you're protecting your own character. Because how you treat others reveals your philosophy more than any book you've read. I once saw a manager yell at his team in frustration. Afterward, one of his employees quietly said, I would have done better if you believed I could. That sentence broke him. He realized that leadership without respect is just control, and control breeds fear, not loyalty. Respect is power without aggression, it's strength wrapped in humility. When you treat others with dignity, even when they don't deserve it, you remind them, and yourself, of what humanity looks like. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, when they act wrongly, it's because they don't know better. Teach them with kindness, not cruelty. That's what respect sounds like in practice, calm firmness without contempt. 4. Right, the courage to say, you're right. This one might surprise you. In a culture obsessed with being right, the Stoics found power in admitting it first. Saying you're right isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It takes humility to recognize truth, even when it comes from someone else. Epictetus warned his students, it is impossible to learn that which one thinks they already know. When you can look someone in the eye and say, you're right, you're telling them, I value truth more than my ego. I had a client, a CEO, who couldn't admit mistakes. Every disagreement turned into a debate. He told me, I can't say they're right, it makes me look weak. I told him, no, it makes you look real, because nobody trusts a man who can't be wrong. A few months later, he called me and said, you were right, I said you're right to one of my employees today. And it changed the entire tone of the conversation. The Stoics taught that the purpose of discussion isn't to win, it's to uncover truth. When you stop fighting to be right, you start growing. Because truth doesn't belong to you, it belongs to whoever honors it most. 5. Sense. The wisdom of agreement without surrender. The phrase "that makes sense" might sound small, but it carries enormous weight. It's the perfect response when you want to show understanding without blind agreement. In Stoic communication, it's a bridge between emotional and rational intelligence. You're saying, "I see where you're coming from. I respect your logic, even if my conclusion is different." Marcus Aurelius practiced this every day as emperor. Surrounded by flatterers and critics alike, he wrote, "Hear them out. Even if they are mistaken, they might reveal the truth you overlooked." "That makes sense" is a phrase of peace. It calms the ego on both sides. It's the verbal equivalent of a deep breath. When someone feels that their thoughts are valid, they stop defending them so fiercely. And that's when real dialogue begins. The Stoics would call this logos in action, reason expressed through language that unites rather than divides. Try it. Next time someone vents, instead of saying, "You're wrong," say, "That makes sense." And here's another angle. You'll see it. The energy shifts from argument to curiosity, and that's the sweet spot of influence. 6. Tell the invitation to truth. Now this last one might seem the simplest, but it's the one most people forget. Tell me. 2 words, Doom says, that turn walls into doors. Most conversations today are shallow because everyone's trying to be interested, not interested. But when you say, "Tell me something good," you're shifting the spotlight from yourself to the other person. You're saying, "I'm here. I care. I want to know your world." That's Stoicism in motion, presence without pretense. There's a barista I see every morning. One day, instead of saying, "How are you?" I asked her, "Tell me something good that happened today." She smiled, paused, and said, "My son got accepted to college." Her eyes lit up, and in that 2-second moment I realized people don't need attention, they need witnesses. When you invite others to speak their truth, you awaken something inside them: dignity, gratitude, meaning. That's what "tell me" does. It pulls people out of autopilot. It transforms small talk into soul talk. Seneca would have called that human connection guided by virtue. Because at the heart of Stoicism isn't control, it's compassion guided by clarity. So when you say "tell me," mean it. Be present, don't rush their answer, because sometimes the story you invite from someone might be the very reminder they needed to believe life still holds good things. Listen deeply, understand gently, respect constantly, admit truth freely, acknowledge logic wisely, and invite others openly. These 6 words, listen, understand, respect, write, sense, tell, are not communication hacks. They're reflections of who you are when your ego is quiet. The Stoics mastered the art of influence not through domination, but through presence. Because people don't remember every word you say, they remember how your presence made them feel. So the next time you speak, slow down, breathe, speak like someone who has nothing to prove, but everything to share. That's what makes your words magnetic. That's what makes them stoic. Take a moment, breathe. Let everything you've just heard settle in, because this isn't just about words. It's about who you become while you speak them. The Stoics believed that language is the reflection of the soul. When your words are calm, it means your mind is steady. When your tone is gentle, it means your heart is clear. And when your presence makes others feel safe, that's when you've mastered the truest form of influence. You see, in a noisy world, people don't crave more talk, they crave truth. They're not looking for perfection, they're looking for peace. And peace doesn't come from fancy phrases or motivational slogans. It comes from a person who has practiced silence long enough to know what's worth saying. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And I'd add, the best persuasion is not to talk louder, but to speak with clarity and peace. Because when your words come from a still mind, they carry weight. When they come from ego, they fade the moment they're spoken, but when they come from truth, they echo. Think about it. The people who've moved you most in life probably weren't the ones who shouted. They were the ones who looked you in the eye and said something simple, but real. Something like, "I understand," or "You're right," or even, "Tell me." That's the quiet power of Stoicism, the kind that doesn't need validation, because it already comes from inner conviction. And when you start speaking from that place, you'll notice something magical. People listen differently, they trust more, they soften around you. Because your words stop being about control, they become an act of service. Influence, in the Stoic sense, isn't about changing others, it's about embodying the kind of peace that reminds others it's possible. Your calm becomes contagious, your restraint becomes strength, your voice becomes medicine. So as you leave this video, I want you to remember one thing. Your words matter, but your presence matters more. Speak with awareness, listen with compassion, and live with the kind of stillness that makes every sentence you say feel like a breath of fresh air. That's what Stoicism looks like in real life. Not distant, not cold, but alive, warm, and quietly powerful. And if this message resonates with you, if it made you pause and think a little deeper, then join me and thousands of others walking this same path of clarity and strength. Subscribe to Stoic Awakening More, where every week we don't just talk about philosophy, we practice it together. Because wisdom isn't found in books, it's found in the way you live, in the way you treat people, and in the calmness of your next word. So breathe. And remember, you don't need to speak louder, you just need to speak truer. Influence isn't about power, it's about presence. Stoic Awakening More.